welcome to the Sharp Way Show. So happy to have you all with me this evening, a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And yes, I'm here again. You're saying, Larry, we are seeing a lot of you recently. Well, yeah, I'm not sick anymore. So now I'm back and you can start seeing me again. I was sick for like a week, but now I'm back in action. So I'm glad you guys are here with me. Tonight, I actually have somebody on, a rarity for me. I mean, there's a couple people who come on a lot, like Mike Voss is on like every day. But besides someone like Mike Voss, it is rare that I have people on multiple times, right? Rare. But this gentleman, maybe because he's so good looking, I don't know why. But anyway, for some reason, this guy, I brought him back again. He is an author. He is a podcaster. He is someone who has spent a lot of time incarcerated and has come to some different views and is now someone who is a self-proclaimed crusader for liberty. The man, the myth, the legend himself, author and activist, Michael Liebowitz. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, but I'm afraid now that I'm on the screen, no one's going to think you have me on because of my looks.
Well, maybe. Yes. No. See, your brain makes you attractive. That's what it is. See, there it is. I love it. But look, you have more than one book out. You talk openly about your experiences.
Sure.
You talk openly about your political views, and they have moved heavily libertarian, right? You are a crusader for liberty. You have your own podcast, right? Which I will bring up, by the way. It is, if you want to check it out on YouTube, The Rational Egoist. So feel free to check him out on YouTube if you want. And by the way, all this information is on the description page of both YouTube and Facebook. So you check him out there. But you spent a lot of time in prison. How many years total?
25. 25
years in prison. And when we talked last time, you were talking more about that side. You weren't talking as much about your ideas on liberty. You were talking much more about your experience in and out of prison. That was much more of your experience.
Yeah.
And I remember you told me something when we first chatted then. You said, Larry, when I was being a criminal, you said, you were enjoying it. Like, it was a good lifestyle. You were having fun. So you got caught, obviously. But it was fun when you were being a criminal. It was an enjoyable lifestyle. So then you go into jail. You go into prison. And I remember something. There's a TV show out now on HBO called The Insurrectionist Next Door. I don't know if you happen to see it, but it's about Jan 6 people.
Okay.
And Nancy Pelosi's daughter actually does it. And she interviews a bunch of Jan 6 people. And when she interviews one of them, the guy spends like, I forgot how much, like 8 months in jail or something like in prison, something like that, like 9 months in prison. And she goes to him. And when she goes to his house, Fox News is in the background. And she is surprised by this. She goes, why? Fox News? What? After all this? And what he says to her is, did you think I'd go to jail and come out a liberal? and that stuck with me. Like, I was like, yeah, like, right? But people do change, but maybe not that way. But you changed. And let me ask you, when you first went in, were you ready to change, or did the experience of going, or was it something that happened that made you kind of shift your mindset?
Well, it's kind of a combination. I mean, first of all, when you're in prison, you have a lot of time to think. So what are you going to think about? And there's a lot of boredom there. So you have to fill the time, and reading is one way to fill the time.
Sure.
But also, being deprived of one's liberty is a clear indication that something's amiss, right? Something's
right. Yes.
Something's not going right. And I mean, I could have said to myself, well, this society sucks. I had a horrible upbringing. It's everybody's fault. But that wouldn't have been very productive. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. Some people actually make a living out of complaining about how screwed up society is and how they're
100%.
But I wanted better for myself.
To be fair, Michael, I would argue that you are an exception here, because I think most people don't take accountability for their actions. I think most just blame everybody else, or the system, or their mom, or whomever. So I think what you're doing is special. Keep going, please.
Okay, well, you're right. Most people in prison in particular do blame everybody.
Yep.
I just knew that was not going to get me what I wanted in life.
Got it.
And it's hard to say. I started to read, and the more you expose yourself to, the more reading you do, the more ideas you come across, a world opens up that I didn't know existed before. So at what point I decided to make the change it was kind of there in nascent form, but finally in 2004 is when I said, that's it. Enough is enough. It's an interesting thing. I was going to this program called the Alternative to Violence Project. It's an all program. And before I went on Saturday morning, my cellmate and I were sniffing heroin off the desk. I brought a bag of heroin with me to the Alternative to Violence because I knew
I want to be clear on this. This was heroin while you were in prison.
Yes.
So I just want people who are talking about the war on drugs. We can't keep drugs out of a prison when there's walls and guards with guns, and we can't keep drugs out. So I think the war on drugs is kind of doomed to fail.
It absolutely is. And I brought a bag of heroin because I knew I'd see a guy from another block and I'd give it to him. And I decided that was it. At some point, I don't remember if it was at the beginning of that day, the day before, but I decided enough. I'm not doing this anymore. If I ever want to have any kind of life for myself, it has to stop. I got back from the program that night. My cellie had lines of heroin spread out on the table. I shouldn't say spread out. When it's heroin, you're talking 1 or 2 lines. And I said, no, I don't want it. I'm done. I haven't touched it since. Haven't gotten high since. Not on anything.
Wow.
That was May, I think, 13th, 2004.
So let me ask, can you remember the last thing that you read before that happened or in that area? Can you remember the last thing?
I don't. And I really don't. I had been studying Ayn Rand for a couple years at that point.
Okay.
And, her, my podcast is The Rational Egoist for her, and her ethic of egoism was really inspiring to me. And I started to think more in terms of what was in my self-interest and how to live and what would benefit me. And that had a big part of that,
because a lot of people have come to a liberty view or libertarian view through different types, right?
Yeah.
And if you go back in the day, most people today don't come through Rand. But if you go back to the 70s or the 80s, a lot came through her. Sorry. Yeah. What people today, many came through Ron Paul. That was a more common one today, right? Much more common. But back then it was more Ayn Rand. And I think you were like a couple years behind the curve on that one, but you came.
Well, let me just say in regards to Dr. Paul, and with all due respect, Dr. Paul is heavily influenced by the late economist Murray Rothbard.
Sure.
In the 1950s, when Ayn Rand published Atlas Shrugged, Murray Rothbard wrote a letter to her about that book, saying that it was like the most phenomenal thing he'd ever read.
Wow.
While Murray Rothbard was writing Man, Economy, and State, he wrote a letter to the Volcker Fund, who was his publisher, and he said, I've now been convinced of this Randian view that there is an objective ethic, and I'm going to include that in my book. The late anarchist Roy Childs said, without Ayn Rand, there would be no more Murray Rothbard, because she introduced him to the idea of natural rights, which he said in the first letter. In a speech he gave, I want to say 1982 or 83, he said, while he was critical of the Randian movement, the inner workings of it, and I'm not going to get into that soap opera stuff, but he said the writings, the stuff that was written by Ayn Rand, he said she's virtually right about everything. A couple weeks ago, I interviewed the anarchist libertarian Jeffrey Tucker, who was a student of Murray Rothbard, and he said 3/5 to 4/5 of Rothbard's brain was all Ayn Rand.
Wow.
So, although he said that Rothbard failed to cite Rand. So let me just say that anybody that's coming to the liberty viewpoint from Dr. Paul may not know it, but you can guarantee that Ayn Rand's in the background.
Well, I think a lot of people don't want to hear that, because in her later years, she really poo-pooed libertarians at the end.
Yes.
And I think a lot of libertarians just kind of a little mad about that. So they don't want to hear that. They're upset. So like, no, we're not that. We're not objectivists. Blah, right? We're libertarians.
Sure.
But I do think there's overlap. I know many objectivists, and there absolutely is overlap. What I think objectivists fail at, to be forward with you, is they fail at a positive marketing message. Most objectivists are too damn logical and don't understand the marketing messages that the left is amazing. The left has the best marketing. It's all rainbows. Everybody gets puppies. We all get free stuff. Their marketing and messaging is amazing. Objectivist, not so much.
Okay. Well, allow me to retort, please, sir.
Please.
For the better part of a quarter of a century, I called myself a libertarian, despite Rand's criticism, because Rand's criticisms of libertarianism are directed mostly at anarchism, at the anarchist or anarcho-capitalist wing, which I think she's spot on in her critique. So I continued to call myself a libertarian. Less than a year out of prison, my views haven't changed. Exposed to the libertarian messaging, I've stopped calling myself a libertarian. I will not be associated with some of the people that refer to themselves as a libertarian, and I'd be happy to tell you why. Believe me, I'm chomping at the bit to tell you why.
But it's okay. I want to go back. Yes, we can, but I kind of want to go back if I could.
Okay.
I want to go back to once you decided, all right, I'm taking charge of my life here, right? I'm done. No more heroin. I'm done. I'm going to change. You know, why didn't you, and I don't mean this to be fun, I'm serious. Why didn't you go to like religion? Lots of people do that, right? They all of a sudden become super Christian, or they change and they convert to Muslim, Islam,
sure.
Or they become super Jewish, or they become the super of whatever their religion is. They do that,
sure,
or something like that. What made you go this route, not that route?
Okay, so whenever you give a narrative like this, it sounds like it's linear, right? You just go point A to point B, but ultimately there's a lot going on in between. Long before 2004, back as early as 1998, I decided to change my life. At that point, I got involved with Christianity. I studied Buddhism.
Okay, so you did walk down that path.
I got it. Okay. I don't know if you, well, maybe you do. You're from New York. I got involved with the 5 percenters for
of
a
course.
while.
5 percenters are all through prison,
right? Yep. I studied their stuff. I did get into Judaism for a while. Ultimately, and then I actually quit doing drugs. I quit gambling. I got myself on track for a while. But then I relapsed and I got back into doing the drugs, back into the gambling and whatnot. By 2004, I was so enmeshed in thinking logically, as you said before.
Okay.
Religion just wasn't going to cut it. I mean, I wanted, when I was a Christian, I wanted to believe that. But I came across too many holes, too many contradictions. My mind just couldn't brook accepting it. So I moved on to Judaism, and then the same sort of thing happened. And ultimately, by the time 2004, I was done with that. And it's probably why, one of the reasons objectivism appealed to me, because it offers a logical morality, a rational reason to behave ethically, and what that means. So that helped me immensely. By the time we get to 2004, I had been there, done that, I guess, is the short answer to your question.
Okay. I got it. Okay. So now when you do this, my assumption is all the people around you don't go, yay, Michael, let's all do this together. I don't think
No. No. And, I was heavily influenced also by Dr. Stanton Samanow. And he was a criminal psychologist, and he counseled criminals when you're in the process of change. You basically have to turn into a moral perfectionist. You can't allow anything wrong. And, not I don't know if it's coincidentally, but Ayn Rand taught the same thing. So when you start doing that and people start asking you, hey, can you smuggle this back for me? No. Hey, can you take? No. Oh, this is happening. Can you lie? No. They don't look too highly on it, and it causes or caused a lot of aggravation. I also, it may surprise you, I'm very outspoken in what I think and what I feel. And it absolutely astounded me that nobody punched me right in my face. I mean, you've met me. I'm a small guy. A small guy with
that's
a big
what I'm
mouth.
thinking. I think of prison, and you all of a sudden saying, I'm not doing stuff. They're like, oh, yes, you are. That's I imagine that.
Right. And I actually had a conversation with a volunteer about this very issue. And I said, I'm surprised no one punches me in the face. And she said, Michael, what you have to understand about human beings is human beings, whether they know it or not, recognize and respect integrity. So the people that are mocking you or giving you a hard time, they're getting angry with you, whatever, but deep down, they respect it. They respect integrity. And I've come to think there's a lot of validity to her viewpoint.
Well, prison is all about respect, isn't it?
No, no.
I mean, if you don't respect the guy, then they're going to beat you up, right?
No, that's crap. I mean,
Okay.
that's television. No, prison's about each guy thinks that everybody else is disrespecting him. I mean, that's a little hyperbole, but not much. Everybody wants to get what they think is respect. They just don't want to give it to anybody else. For instance, there's a guy that comes to my mind immediately. He's sitting in a chair. If you know, it's a crowded place. If you walk by him and brush against him, he thinks it's a travesty of justice. But if he's in the shower next to your cell singing at the top of his lungs, that's not disrespect. That's fine.
Got it. Okay. I like that. Okay, good. Let me grab a couple comments if I could.
Sure.
Echo says, Larry, I appreciate your hard work over the years. Oh, thank you, Echo. I appreciate that. Merlin says, President Sharp sure sounds good to me. He knows the art of fart, make it real and smell like a rose. Oh, I like that. But no, I thought you liked me, Merlin. Don't punish me by making me try to become president. That's terrible. Terrible. Yes. And it is real and it does smell good. That's true. He's right on both of those cases. He's right. So Joe asks, how does heroin get into prison? And AJ answers, they smuggle drugs in body cavities, guards, and visitors. Is that true?
It is true. It's not the only way in, well, I guess body cavities. An old timer actually, I had been swallowing it. So what happens, I go to a visit, my mother would come visit me or my father, they were the ones bringing it to me. And they put it in a balloon. They'd, you know, put the heroin inside a balloon, give it to me, and I would swallow it and then throw it up later. But then an old timer told me, Mike, you're going about this all wrong. He said, and he asked me, what do they do when you get strip searched at the end? I said, well, they have you get naked, you lift your arms up, they squat and cough, and they look inside your mouth. He said, how? And I said, well, you go, ah, and they look under your tongue. He says, you know where they don't look? I said, where? He said, right up here. He said, if you just take the balloon and put it up there, you're good and you'll get in. And so that's what I started doing. So whoever would come, whether my mother, my father, gives me the heroin, I take it, I put it in my upper gum, and I'm back to the block.
There we go. Easy day. I hope that answers your question, Joe. You now, if you ever go to prison, you now know how to do this. You're good.
I hope he doesn't have someone in prison that's like, hey, how do I get this?
That's good. No soundbites left. Who is Michael Voss, the man I was talking about earlier? He says, I respect those that admit their failures and seek to improve themselves. Rather than excusing bad decisions, we need to support self-accountability. I agree completely.
So don't I.
Right?
So
The issue I have here is very often when someone actually says, hey, I messed up, instead of us going, okay, are you going to fix it? Yes, I am. Well done. We go, you messed up. You suck. You're bad. Don't say you messed up. So now no one ever wants to say they messed up, because the second you say you messed up, everyone's attacking you. So absolutely, I completely agree with that. Yes, absolutely. So hold on. This guy says, user has been banned for naughty words. He says prison wallet. I don't know what that is. And he goes on to say, guns have been found in prison wallets.
And cell phones.
You know what he's talking about?
I know exactly what he's talking about.
Okay, tell me about that.
I don't know if you want me to say it, but I know what he's talking about.
Why do I care?
Well, what they do is they cuff it. It's called cuffing it. They stick it in their anus and get it, and that's how they get it back to the block. That's what the prison wallet is.
Oh, there we go. Okay. We learned all kind of cool things today. I love it. All good.
I don't know how cool it is, but
it's fine. So I get where you're going now. If I get it right. You started saying, look, I got to fix things.
Yeah.
You tried and you went down several religious routes, spiritual routes, I'll say. Spiritual. I'll go down that road. And it didn't work for you, right? For you, it didn't work. You went and you relapsed. You then found something that was more logical, more rational for you. That worked for you. And you began to change.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to change and people are not liking it. They're mad at you. You're probably losing friends, I'm assuming, all those things. Why did you continue to change? Why didn't you relapse?
Motivationally, the reason I continued to change is because I wanted to get the hell out of prison, and I wanted to not only get out, but I wanted to make it out, make it on the outside. I wanted to be a success on the outside. Another reason, when I use reason, I'm saying what made it possible was I had my best friend. We met in prison. We became best friends. We were friends. We were in the same block for 16 years. We were cellmates for 11. So that was support that I always had. Right. So even when other people were getting at me, I had him, we were in it together, and that helped immensely.
Is he also an objectivist and or libertarian or no?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
He started off a socialist, and I converted him. Before we changed, I mean, I'm taking maybe too much credit. It's probably more accurate to say the likes of Henry Hazlitt, Frederick Bastiat, and Ludwig von Mises converted him, but I gave him the book, so I'll take some credit.
I'm happy. Oh, good. I always said people, and I think you were in Connecticut, and you remember me saying the story. Right? I told the story about Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell was a Marxist.
Yes.
Right? He was a Marxist. And then before you know it, with a change of experience, change of education, he became one of the best libertarian thinkers that we have. Yes. So absolutely. So that's great. So, all right. So as this starts to happen, why are you thinking that liberty or freedom is the answer when you were free, didn't work out well for you? Right. And then, right. So what makes that changing? How do you square that circle? Okay, why wouldn't you think the opposite? Which I know a lot of people come to prison.
This is a huge question.
They come out with, we need tougher this, stronger that. A lot of people come out the opposite.
Well, I'm there in some ways too. But for instance, my life would have been vastly different, say, if drugs were legal. My parents were both heroin addicts, right? If heroin's legal, it doesn't mean they're going to be upstanding citizens, but they also don't have to run around stealing to get it. They don't have to be committing crimes like that, where both of them are in and out of my life from, by going to prison. I mean, it would have been bad. Like if you have an alcoholic parent, that's not wonderful, but it doesn't rise to the level of them going to prison. So that is one thing that would have been different. But the liberty aspect is actually a very interesting story. So when I'm 18 years old and I'm free, I was driving on 91 North in Connecticut, and my car, the engine seized on me in the fast lane on the highway. It scared the hell out of me.
Wow.
So maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month later, I was driving my mother's car. And now when my car seized, the car filled with this horrible smell, like something was burning. So I'm driving my mother's car, and I got a similar smell, and it scared me. So I pulled over. It turned out nothing was wrong with the car. But a guy pulled over to help me, gave me a ride to get some water because I thought the car was overheating. And we're talking. And long story short, this guy was he was an Amway salesman. Okay. And he didn't tell me that at the time. He asked me over to his house, and he was going to explain this whole thing to me. And they had a teaching system that they called Worldwide Dream Builders that was going to teach you how to do the business and how to be a better person, a lot of self-improvement stuff.
Hold on one second. For those of you who don't know Amway is a very large and very popular network marketing company, right? You individual people become the people who sell, they sell to their family and friends, and everybody makes money in the pyramid, right? It's a very large, one of the largest, I think, in the world. They're very large. Go ahead, please.
Right. Okay. So now when I decided to change myself in prison, the time it didn't stick, I thought to myself, wait a second. I remember in Amway, they taught you that the way who a person's going to be a year from now will be determined by the books he reads and the people he hangs around. So I thought, yes, that's true. That Amway reading list is full of self-help and motivational stuff. So I contacted the guy and I asked him, hey, I'll pay you, but can you send me the books off the reading list? He said, no problem. So there's about 70 books on that list, and I went right through it. But interestingly, 2 books on it. One was The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
Yep.
The other was Free to Choose by Milton Friedman.
There we go.
So reading Friedman, sparked a lifelong interest in economics that I've had ever since.
So we should thank Amway for this.
Yes. And Frederick Bastiat convinced me of the moral case of the purpose of government is life, liberty, and property. Now, on the back of the book, The Law, there was an address for a place called the Foundation for Economic Education. Now, I wanted to learn all I could about economics, so I wrote to them. I said, look, any information you can send me, I'd appreciate it. They sent me a free year subscription to their magazine, Ideas on Liberty. So I started devouring that. I ordered Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics. You just mentioned him.
Yep. I'm a little bit mad at Fee, by the way. A little bit. You know why?
Why?
They used to be in New York and they left.
They left New York. I didn't even know they used to be on Irvington on the Hudson. Okay.
Yes, they're in Georgia now.
Yeah. So,
yes. Which makes me angry because they left my state. Damn them. So
now, in their magazine was an address for a place called Laissez-Faire Books. So I wrote to them. They sent me a catalog. In the interim, I read a book called The Triumph of Liberty by a guy named Jim Powell. It was, I think, 64 mini biographies of people that contributed to liberty. So some of the people that really struck a chord with me in there were Ludwig von Mises, Ayn Rand. So when I get the catalog for the, the Laissez-Faire catalog, they've got a whole section on Mises. They've got a section on Austrian economics. So I ordered the Austrian economics stuff. Then there was a box set. And in that box set, it contained Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, I believe Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, Our Enemy the State by Albert J. Nock, and The Discovery of Freedom by Rose Wilder Lane. So I ordered that box set.
You got all of them.
Oh, I got them, and I devoured them. And Brent and I ended up meeting Brent, who was my best friend, and he got converted. And every month we would get this catalog from Laissez-Faire Books, and we just kept ordering stuff and just read, everything we can get our hands on. Murray Rothbard, the anarchist arguments, the minarchist arguments, the natural rights arguments, everything we could. And so that stuff convinced me. And I still love the libertarian, classical liberal tradition.
Sure.
I think it's phenomenal. I just think that what some people today who call themselves libertarians or speaking as Misesians are vastly different from what that tradition represents.
Well, let me grab a couple more comments if I could. Michael Voss says, I really love to hear how Michael took advantage of the time to read, learn, and educate. I wish college students did this. Seriously, those struggling need to listen to this. Mike Voss is more conservative than I would like him to be. So I would like Michael to listen to your book list. Maybe, Michael, you should do some reading to come back to my side a little bit more. I wouldn't mind that. Maybe you should also listen to what he's talking about. I'm just saying anyway. But yes, I think that's great. Dave says, a summer in the Department of Labor converted Thomas Sowell away from Marxism. I remember that story. Yes, he worked for the Department of Labor and was like, all right, I'm out. That's it. I'm out. No way. Merlin says, prison humbles you to the insanity of man. Well, it's funny. I think about my mom when she came out. I think I told you my mom was a felon. And when she came out, I think she was humbled. She came out and everyone who was supposedly her friend was no longer her friend. She had lost everything. She literally had 2 garbage bags. That was her entire life. It was all in 2 garbage bags. And I picked her up. I was the only one there. I was her support structure for when she got out. And I feel like it did humble her. It did make her realize that, what was important, what wasn't important, get her life together. She was much better. My mom was clean till she died. She was clean the whole time, all the way through. Do you feel that happened to you or no?
I don't understand the question. Can you ask it again?
Did you feel you were humbled? Do you feel that prison humbled you or no? I think with some people it does. It did my mom. Some people, they come out worse.
In a sense. In the sense of it made me think that, yes, I need to change. You know what I mean? Like my way's not working. I need to change. But in some ways I'm far more confident than I was when I went in. My self-esteem is far more secure than I went in. I've accomplished far more since I went in. So in that way, no, it didn't humble me. In the beginning, it humbled me to the extent to say I need to do something different. But am I a more humble person now? I wouldn't say so, no.
Okay. Morgan says, clean, use different language. Morgan, I think you're right. I think I aged myself by using the word clean. The word I should have used was sober. That would be a better word. You are correct. I will take your criticism to heart, Morgan. The word I should have used was sober. So I will use that word. My mom was sober until she passed. I'll do that instead. But you're right. I think the older you are, the more you use that word. So you're correct. I will adjust my language. Thank you. So yes. In any case, I do like sober better. So let me now move to the next step. Now you're thinking you're going to be getting out one day, right? You're thinking, okay, I'm going to be getting out one day. Why does the idea of liberty, how does that, not why, wrong word, how does that motivate you when you're thinking, okay, one day I'm gonna get out now, like your head's in that space now? How does that motivate you? Or does it not matter? You just, I'm getting out, I'm gonna be better, who cares? Or did the liberty message, did it do something for you?
Well, the objectivist message definitely did something to inform me as far as how to live my life, how to build my self-esteem.
Okay.
But the guy said the insanity of man there, and one other guy mentioned Thomas Sowell. And it's important that while I'm reading these great arguments for liberty, which I found to be irrefutable, and believe me, I've tried to refute them. And I've read the counter arguments. I've read Marx, I've read Keynes, I've read Paul Krugman. I've done what I can to challenge myself.
Mm-hmm.
But living in a government institution also demonstrated to me that government just does not work. The incentive structures are not there. The government sector unions protect bad employees. These people are not good at what they do, and therefore they should be doing as little as possible.
Got it. Wow. It's a different way of working for the Department of Labor, like Thomas Sowell did. A different way of doing that. But yes. So let me talk to my audience for a second.
Okay.
If you're listening to this and watching this and liking this, please click the like button. I bug you about clicking the like button all the time. Why? That's how I get past the algorithms. That's how people hear this message. So if you're watching, click the like button. Every click does matter. Please do so. Second thing, if you're watching us on Twitter, retweet this, or on X, repost this, or re-X this, whatever is the thing we do now, do that thing. If you want to support the show, many ways you can. You can, if you want to, super chat me on Larry Sharpe YouTube. That's great. You can just head over to patreon.com if you want to. Throw me $10 a month, Sharpe way, keep going, keeps me going here. Less time consulting, more time doing this. I know you guys love that. So that helps also if you want to. But there's something else you can do, which is it's free, but it helps tremendously. Once this show is over, come back onto YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and comment. Comment after it's over. It helps out with the algorithms tremendously. So I don't care what you write. Great show, Larry. Larry, you're terrible. I don't care. Write anything you want. All good. Write something after the show is over. Or any other things I just asked you. All of them will assist the show. But more important than all of that, support this man here who is giving us some of his awesome time. Head over to YouTube, The Rational Egoist. Support his show. Watch his stuff. See what he's doing. It does matter tremendously. So let me now go back to you're out.
Okay.
Get out. You're now saying, okay, you had a girlfriend, if I remember right. You did have a girlfriend when you got out?
Yes.
You got a girlfriend, you get out. Are you still with her now?
Yeah, I live with her. She's in the other room.
Nice. Excellent. So you're with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
How is liberty, or is it? I mean, maybe your only answer was, how do I get my next job or whatever? I don't know. But was liberty on your mind then? Were you thinking, okay, now that I'm out, this?
Yes, because my goal became, while I was in prison, to have a podcast, to be a radio talk show host.
Okay.
As a both because I enjoy doing it, so it would allow me to earn a living, but also allow me to convey the message about things that that are important to me: prison reform,
right,
liberty,
right.
And you mentioned before there's a lot of people and they don't give guys like me a chance. Guys coming out of prison. And that's true. And when I was in prison, I was invited to be a one-time guest on the Todd Feinberg show. It's a popular show here in Connecticut. I ended up a regular, and people would just call and say horrible things about me just because I was in prison.
Of course.
But there was also a lot of people that were very accepting of me. And it's funny, when I started this podcast, well, not this one, I'm on your podcast now, my podcast, The Rational Egoist, I started reaching out to prominent libertarian, objectivist, people that I had read while I was in prison. And so many of them have agreed to come on my show. And I've interviewed. My first interview was with David Friedman, Milton Friedman's son. I mean, I've interviewed Richard Epstein and it was amazing to me. I emailed him. He said, hey, give me a call. And next thing I know, I'm interviewing this guy. He's sitting across from me. So many people have been willing to overlook or look past, whatever the word is, my past, and engage me for who I am now. I've interviewed 4 libertarian presidential candidates.
Yep.
To me, that's like, wow, like this is the stuff I was so interested in for so many years in prison. And now I'm out here and I'm doing it. And it could only be done if there were people that looked beyond my conviction or convictions.
I think it's very much like what Michael Voss just posted. He said what impressed him was that you were just taking accountability. And what you said earlier during this show was people are impressed or respect integrity. I think you've shown integrity and accountability. And that's why people are like, yeah, I brought you on as soon as you reached out to me. It's your second time on immediately, right? Immediately. I was like, oh, bring it on. I did the same thing. I brought you on right away. I think people respect those two things. And you know this, a lot of people who make bad mistakes, and I think now more than ever, but I think it's always been a chunk of people, they literally take no accountability. They literally just blame the world. They literally have no integrity, none. And I think many people have been affected by those people and then judge everybody that way. You think I'm wrong on that?
No, I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is people just, they see a horrible act and they say, well, this person deserves to be punished. And I agree with that. The problem is 95% of criminals are getting out of prison.
Yes.
Right? So does it make sense to just say, well, screw you, you did something wrong 5, 10, 20, whatever years ago, we're never going to accept you? Because I can tell you this, I don't care how much changing I did, I'm not going to starve to death. And had I gotten out of prison and I didn't have my good friend Subby there to help me and give me a place to stay, and I didn't have a wonderful girlfriend supporting me and my sister supporting me, and everybody in society just said, screw you, you've committed a crime, we're done with you, I'm not going to chalk it up and say, well, I want to be a good person, so I'm going to go sleep under a bridge and starve.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's not going to happen.
Agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
And I don't want to get into what I would have done in those circumstances.
No. I am aware of this because I have friends who made the decision already. They've made the decision that I'm going to eat, and if someone else has to pay the price for that, then someone else has to pay the price for that. I understand that completely.
You know, and that's believe me, it's the very last thing I would ever want to do. But if society is going to completely reject somebody coming out of prison, and that person is either going to starve to death or rob one of the people that's rejecting them, that person's getting robbed. So It's ultimately, whenever I talk to people about this, prison reform is not, helping ex-convicts is not done for the sake of the ex-convict. It's done for the sake of the people that have to live in society with the ex-convicts.
Absolutely. 100%, 100%. So yes. So I have a question that's kind of off. If you want to grab it, this is Legacy Zach says, your thoughts on agorism.
I don't know what that means. I've seen it on Twitter. I think I looked it up. I don't
know what it is either. So that's why I pronounce it that way. I don't know. Zach, you've just said something that no one knows what it is. If you could maybe look it up and give us a quick definition, and maybe we'll do that then. So yes, no one knows what that is. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. David says, prison dysfunction is an amazing argument I can use with my left-leaning friends. Yes. Sure. I mean, it's true, right? Most people think that libertarians are right-leaning. And I don't think that's universally true at all. Some are, right? Some are actually more like conservatarians, right? But I think a lot of libertarians aren't right-leaning. Many of them are left-leaning or somewhere in the middle. I think it's true. Now, you're going to talk now.
I'm going to talk? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. I thought you were still reading stuff.
No, yeah, tell me if I'm right or wrong.
No. I think you're absolutely right. And my book, View from a Cage, the book that I gave you, it's all about my intellectual development. And thank you. And a big part of that intellectual development is the way the prison system itself runs. Because that put into concrete form exactly what I had been reading about the dysfunctions of government. So it was a real life example. It wasn't all just the theory that I was reading from Mises and Rand, or it was the reality of my everyday existence.
Got it. Well, by the way, the link to purchase that book is in the description, both YouTube and Facebook. If anyone wants to see it, this is it right here. He just gave it to me like last week, so I've not had time to read it yet. But I will. So yes, absolutely, if we could. So Zach just gave us something that probably doesn't help, Zach. He said, counter economics in subversion of the state, absent of political motivations.
Yeah, that sentence to me doesn't mean anything.
I don't know what that means, Zach. I'm sorry. It sounds cool. So yes, maybe, because it does sound cool. I don't know what that means. And the funny part is people assume all the time, because of how I speak on libertarianism and liberty issues, that I'm actually well-read in liberty. I'm not at all. I never say I am. I'm not. I'm very practical in my libertarianism. Everything I find is I take the system and I make it freer. That's what I do. I always try to stop monopolies, stop coercion, stop those things, and I wind up being libertarian. Not because I've read so much. I have read Bastiat. I love Bastiat. He's my favorite. But I'm not well read, right? But I don't need to be. I'm a politician. I don't need to be. Yes. So yes. Morgan says Larry Sharp just knows what makes sense. That's true. That's also true. Yes. Joe has a better one. He says Free Market Anarchist Political Philosophy by Samuel Edward Konkin that believes the ultimate goal of bringing out about a society which all relations between people are voluntary exchanges, a free market. Ooh, I like that. Okay. So So Legacy Zach, I'm now going to give a comment on that because thank you, Joe, for helping us out on that one. You will never hear me publicly talk about the idea of anarchy, because what anarchy means denotatively and the connotation are totally different, right? What it actually means is basically that, but connotatively, people take it as chaos and pain, and we're in the streets with machine guns fighting for gas, right? That's how they take it. So I often talk about a voluntary society. And I would love us to get close as we can, to a voluntary society. It would be amazing if we could actually have a completely voluntary society. That'd be awesome. We are nowhere near that in our current society. Not even close. Culturally, we aren't there. Society-wise, our communities aren't prepared to handle not having any form of coercion or government. I know it sounds terrible, but I talk often about changing culture because I think we have to change culture so that we can be more prepared for a more voluntary society. Right now, we're just not there. That's my personal view on that, and I hope that made sense to you, Zach. That's my personal view. I love the concept of it. I love the rainbows and unicorns of it. I do. And I think we should move towards it. I think we're nowhere near it. That's my view. Michael, you have a view on that?
Yes, I think anarcho-capitalism, if it was ever implemented, would be an utter disaster.
Okay.
It's not that no anarcho-capitalist thinkers haven't inspired me and I haven't liked them, but one of the best examples I've ever heard was given by a guy that, well, I don't really care for, but Jan Helfeld. And the example he gave was, suppose you have this anarcho-capitalist society where you have competing governments over the same territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in order to function in life, we need to know what's expected of us. We need to have, you can't have a situation where you don't know what you can do. So suppose you have a guy and a girl. So the guy is 19, the girl's 16. Mm-hmm. According to the guy's defense agency, it's perfectly legal for him to date this 16-year-old girl. According to the girl's defense agency, it's against the law. Mm-hmm. The girl's father presses charges against this guy. He's acted in accordance with what he thought was legal and is, according to his agency, and her father is doing the same. How do you ever resolve such a thing?
We deal with that right now.
Well, you have different states.
Yeah, same thing. Wouldn't it be?
No, it's not. No, because in different states, if you go into Connecticut, it's one set of laws. In New York, it's another set of laws. In an anarcho-capitalist system, you have competing governments governing the same territory.
Okay, but in theory, wouldn't you? I don't know. I guess if I understand what algorithmism is that you would have local societies, right? So it'd be more like a bunch of Amish groups.
Well, that's not what he said, right? He said anarchism. So
he didn't say that. No, he didn't say that.
He said free market anarchism.
But yeah.
Go back to the quote. He said anarchism.
Hold on, make sure that did he say that?
Yes.
No, he said voluntary exchanges.
Read the whole quote, Larry?
Free market anarchist political philosophy.
Yeah, anarchist political philosophy.
Okay.
And
I'll
an
buy it. All
anarchist,
right.
yeah, and an anarchist political philosophy, especially in regards to what I'm guessing your audience is familiar with, would be of a Rothbardian or a David Friedman type of anarchy where you have competing governments. And ultimately, in order to have a functioning society, you have to know what's expected of you. And you need to have a final arbiter.
So
Rothbard himself in Power and Market conceded that you would ultimately need a final arbiter to decide things. David Friedman concedes that even if you had anarchy, you can't guarantee these competing governments are going to be libertarian governments. And I think Robert Nozick ultimately slays it when he talks about how if you have competing governments, ultimately one is going to win out. You're going to end up with one, whether through providing better goods and services or through force, which is more likely, you're going to end up with one. My personal belief, now I'm going to get you in a little bit of the weeds here, Larry, but I'm going to try to get you out quick. When I first read Lysander Spooner's argument and the Constitution and no treason, the Constitution of no authority, he said, given that not everybody has consented to the United States Constitution, they can't hold you accountable. And I couldn't get around that argument for years. I thought he was right. And I think he is right if you're talking about compulsion is going to be used. But Randy Barnett in his book, Restoring the Lost Constitution, talked about if you have a government that all it does is protect rights, consent isn't required. And because here's the thing. If Larry Sharp punches me in the face, I don't need Larry Sharp's permission to punch him back. And if you have a government that all it does is protect rights, then it doesn't matter if you consent. If you violate somebody's rights, that government has the right to retaliate. And that's what I think that we should be arguing about, because it will provide a system of objective rules that everybody under the orbit of that government knows it has to follow. All it will be doing is protecting rights. It'll be voluntarily funded. And that, I think, solves the sort of the problem.
But I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying, which is
you're right.
Culture is nowhere near ready for that.
I'm with you. That's the ideal. That's what I'm saying. That's the ideal. And I think it's important to fight for the ideal, but I think it's also important to recognize the practical realities that we're dealing with today and say, okay, how do we get from point A to point Z? What's going to take us there?
I remember when I was talking about the idea of leasing naming rights out to bridges, right? So that we could help fund the MTA here in New York City. And some libertarians got mad at me. Why don't you just privatize it, right? Whatever. I said, because New York City's nowhere near ready to privatize it. If you bring up the word privatize, no one even talk to you.
Sure.
That's an evil P word in New York. You can't say that. They will not listen to you. I'll get nothing done. But if I bring up the concept of leasing out naming rights, what have I just done in the minds of many people? Oh, there's another way other than taxation? I've just moved the needle, if that makes any sense, to the vast majority of people in the country, for surely in New York State, but most of the country, they believe in their hearts the only way to have a civilization is mass taxation. They can't imagine any other way at all. So just bringing up that concept, so many people were like, oh, so I don't have to have taxes? Not required. There are other ways to fund things without forcible taxation. And just that piece was great. But to I think maybe an earlier point you're talking about, some libertarians were mad at me. They were like, that doesn't go far enough. I'm like, let me get here. I live in a communist state of New York. Can I at least get that? So I'm always about moving towards that goal, as you talked about, right? That goal of the most minimal government possible, right? I'm always moving towards that goal. And sadly, I think you would see this also. We're going in the opposite direction.
We are. And I think this is where I'd like to get into some of my critiques of libertarianism, if it's okay.
Please.
You mentioned the objectivist message, right?
Yes.
I actually was the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party of Connecticut for a very brief period. The reason I got out was because the Alabama Mises Caucus, a libertarian group, posted a picture. Do you remember when the Unabomber, they didn't know who he was and he was wanted, and they had the picture of him with the hood and the glasses?
Yeah.
Okay. They put that up there. On the side of it was a quote from Ted Kaczynski, and below that it said, R.I.P. Uncle Ted.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with these people? This is a murderer. This is not somebody to be praised. And I spoke to the people, the head of the Libertarian Party in Connecticut. I said, we got to get out. We got to, denounce this. This is not something we need to be associated. Well, we really don't do that. So I said, okay, I'm out. I don't want to be the spokesperson anymore. Soon after that, I see the National Mises Caucus just trashing Israel constantly. Trashing Israel. I'm opposed to foreign aid myself. I don't think we should be giving taxes to other countries. I certainly don't think we should be sending troops over there. But it was unmistakable to me who was the victim in this situation. And then I went to the Mises Caucus's Twitter feed, and about 3/4 of it was about Israel. It wasn't Austrian economics. It wasn't individual liberty. It was Israel's bad. Israel's bad. Israel's bad. So I'm like, that's horrible. Then the Mises Caucus is promoting anarchism, secession, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. That's something Mises would have never went for. Never. I have many quotes from him talking about the necessity of.
But hold on, I've heard many attacks on Mises Caucus. I get it.
Sure.
I get a lot of people are mad. You're not the only guy. A lot of people are mad. Totally understand. What I'm saying here, though, is in my retort, as you said, you retort. I will retort also if I could. Sure. That's one caucus at one point in time.
No.
In the party that's been around for 50 years.
Disagree.
And at one point, the caucus will be overtaken by whatever is the new cool thing. I don't know what that is, whether that's this year or 2 years from now or 10 years from now.
Okay.
Every group who takes over the Libertarian Party eventually loses power and the other group comes in.
Okay.
That's how that works. So why would that matter in that case?
Okay. Let me, I have to continue.
Please.
To continue with the Mises Caucus, their endorsed candidate for president is against abortion and pro restrictions on immigration. He's a guy that was a communist 7 years ago. That's not the guy that you want to nominate for president. If you're a libertarian.
First off, to be fair, again, I'm going to go back same thing. Yes,
one candidate. Okay,
but it's one candidate.
Okay, but it's not. And if you let me keep going, I'll keep going.
Okay,
the Libertarian National Party, not the Mises Caucus, posted on Twitter praising Alex Jones. Alex Jones. Okay. The New Hampshire Libertarian Party posted a picture of hostages being released by Hamas. And the caption underneath it said, "Don't you wish your girlfriend would look at you the way that they're looking at Hamas?" At the Connecticut Libertarian Convention, you introduced 3 pop culture speakers. Mm-hmm. One of them, Clint Russell, got up there and said, we have a virus that was created and released. First of all, he can't prove that. Trafficking and conspiracy theories. Josie, the redheaded libertarian, got up there and talked about an invasion on our border. Immigrants are invaders. Today on Facebook, she posted that there's a gay couple in Britain that adopted, that had in vitro fertilization. Josie posts 10 children were destroyed in order for them to have these 2. She's referring to embryos as children. She then referred to them as babies. She referred to Alex Jones and as a freedom fighter. These are the people, but these are the Larry. These are the people out there. That's not the libertarianism of Ludwig von Mises. That's not the libertarianism of Frederick Bastiat.
I'm not sitting here defending you or them at all. What I'm saying is, hold on, let me finish my point now.
Okay.
I am still a libertarian. I was a libertarian. I told this story like yesterday, 2 days ago. It's funny. I had Josh Eckel on 2 days ago. And I told the story. I'll tell you the same story. In 2018, the Libertarian Party at that point, there was no Mises Caucus that was taken over then. This was back when Nick Sarwark was in charge, right? So there was no Mises Caucus back then. Arvin Wara said that all veterans are murderers. He was the vice chair of the Libertarian Party. I didn't leave the Libertarian Party. I didn't stop calling myself libertarian. I stepped down from that organization because I was on the LNC at the time. I stepped down from the organization, and then I found someone to replace him. The new vice chair was someone I picked, motivated, and replaced him. I didn't end the party, walk away. I didn't. In fact, people tried to get me to talk trash about it. And I did not. I did not talk trash about it at all. I let it go. And I just kept going.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is, I'm not saying these things you're saying are not bad. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying
No,
is
I
these are
got
the
it.
people
Two things,
who
Larry.
will eventually at one point go away. I don't know when that's going to happen, but not because they're bad, but because everyone goes away. So eventually they will go away and someone else will come into place. Just done.
The purpose of words, of any word, is to differentiate it, to differentiate a concept from other concepts. So if you tell me something's a bird, I know you're talking about a winged animal that probably flies, right?
Yep.
If you start including in that reptiles,
Yep.
and then dogs, the word bird no longer signifies meaning.
Yep.
And what I'm saying is the people that are encompassed within the libertarian movement are so now that by calling myself a libertarian, I feel that it fails to convey my political viewpoints. But the reason, well, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about that anyway, but
Go ahead,
I
please.
was also responding when you said that objectivists have poor messaging.
Yep.
When you have a caucus that is basically trying to be Donald Trump, they get real tough and real spicy. Yesterday, the Libertarian Party of Connecticut said Donald Trump cannot be charged for the January 6th events because he was acquitted by the Senate in an impeachment hearing. First of all, they don't know what they're talking about constitutionally. They're dead wrong. So I tagged Ilya Soman, a libertarian constitutional professor, into the conversation. And I asked him, I said, Ilya, to me, this seems absurd, this position they're taking. What do you think? He said, yeah, it's absurd. They said, LOL, you're absurd to him. And I'm like, well, not only are you ignorant, but you're demonstrating bad manners. Goodbye. And somebody else comes on from the Mises Caucus and said, keep it spicy. First of all, like I said, they're trying to mimic Donald Trump, I believe, to get attention. Secondly, in prison, we have something that we call cell gangsters.
Okay.
Right? Do you know what a cell gangster is?
I don't. Tell me, please.
Okay. The equivalent out here would be a keyboard warrior.
Okay.
A cell gangster is someone that when the door gets locked, they start yelling out this, that, threatening people, this and that when they're protected. A keyboard warrior, in my view, is very similar. That when you're not face to face with somebody, and I'm not talking about violence, just when you have to look somebody in the eye and say these things to them, rather than hide behind the name, the Libertarian Mises Caucus, and spout out your nonsense to people, it's a lot more difficult. When I was at the Libertarian Convention, I said, I think I told you, I said, I want to put the Mises Caucus out of business.
You told me, I remember.
Yeah. Everybody I spoke to, I said the same thing too, not knowing whether they were Mises Caucus or not. Really don't care. I'm going to say what I think. My name is out there. I'm not hiding behind anything. And it's just Michael Rechtenwald, I interviewed him and debated him on some of these very issues. And I go back and forth. And to his credit, while I don't like him as a candidate or a political theorist, I don't know him personally, so I don't know what I think of him there. I respect the fact that his name's on everything. He's out there and he puts himself out there
100%.
to be. I respect that. I don't respect insulting people from behind a logo on Twitter. I don't respect insulting people anyway. I think it's a bad way to go about things. Deal with the issues, debate them, and if you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Well, so there's some people now, I think, I don't know if they're teasing you or not, but they're like, is Michael running for LP chair? Are you running for something now?
I'm not, but I'll tell you what, if the Libertarian Party ever nominated me for something like that, first of all, I'd clean house and I'd also bring a very consistent message. That's raw and logical and doesn't get involved in insulting people or excluding people simply because they disagree with me.
Well, look, I'm not like people are teasing me. Craig says Craig is clearly on your side on this one. Craig says Clint Russell's a scumbag grifter. He's mad at Maj and Dave Smith and Josie, and he says that I'm on the board of directors. I am on the advisory board. I'm not on the board of directors. I'm on the advisory board. And people ask why. I said a very simple answer. Why? Do you know why?
Well, because from inside, you can actually make the type of changes that you want to make.
No.
But being outside, you can't do anything. Then I have no idea.
Because they asked me. If people who know me know that I say no to almost nobody. And when they asked me years ago, I said, of course, I'll help out any way I can. You're organizing? Of course. I actually asked the Prags, do you want me on? They told me no. They didn't want my help. The reason why I wasn't on the Prague caucus is because they told me no. Not because I didn't want to be on. I asked to be on all of them. I say no to nobody. If you want my help and you're libertarian, I will assist you. We are too small for civil wars. We're too small. So you will never find me fighting civil wars. I will
Might
be
we
on
be too
everybody's side no
small?
matter what.
But might we be too small because of people getting on Twitter and the Mises Caucus and insulting people and praising Alex Jones?
And when's the last? Hold on. Yes. And when is the last time you saw me involved in one of those?
I've never seen you. No,
Yes,
Larry.
never.
You're great. Listen. I've been on the show before. I met you in person. You're really nice guy. Great guy. But we're talking here about, first of all, my book, View from a Cage, is how I came to think the way I did. I came out of prison with a big goal to promote liberty, and I am going to continue to do that. Josie, the libertarian, and Clint Russell, who the Connecticut Libertarian Party had speak at their function, these are not people that I would ever have thought of as libertarians. Until I've gotten out here and seen on Twitter, on Facebook, the people that call themselves libertarians and are calling for immigration restrictions? Really? Calling embryos children? Praising Vivek Ramaswamy? Calling Alex Jones a freedom fighter? Come on, praising Ted Kaczynski? These are not the things that Frederick Bastiat would have fought for, not the things Ludwig von Mises would have fought for, certainly not the things Ayn Rand would have fought for.
Let me give you my one more defense, if I may.
Okay.
One more, if I may. Where are we going to go? And this sounds terrible, but I'm being very forward. Where are we going to go? It is difficult, if not impossible, to find a group of people who are even close to where we are. Most of us aren't true libertarians in any real way, right? But libertarianism is the closest thing that we have, closest to our mindset, closest to our thought process, closest to our political philosophy. And the only way we can even come close to this, trying to create a caucus in the Democratic or Republican Party, maybe, but that's a joke. It never works ever. No other parties have any power at all. We have very little, but compared to others, we have a lot. They all want our lines, but it's something else. We have very little success. So when we see success anywhere, when we see somebody speaking anywhere close to us, we jump up and down. The amount of people who started to love Andrew Yang because he said the words libertarian when he was talking. People loved RFK because he was saying some libertarian things. We love Vivek because he said libertarian stuff. Why? Because so many of us don't see anybody doing it. So it's almost like it was a joke that I think it was, it might have been a joke from Eddie Murphy. He said, you know, when you're starving, every cracker is a Ritz, right? When you're starving, every cracker is, that must be a Ritz cracker because you're starving. Well, when it comes to libertarian stuff, man, we're starving. So everybody who gives us a little bit, we think, okay, maybe he's the one. Maybe Vivek is the one. Maybe RFK is the one. Maybe Yang's the one.
No,
I'm with you. But what I'm saying is, this is what has happened to many of us, is what I'm saying.
Okay, but you mentioned the messaging, Larry. Messaging. And is the messaging coming out of the Mises Caucus, coming out of the LP Central Committee, coming out of people that they're embracing, like Josie and this Clint Russell, or Dave Smith and Scott Horton? Scott Horton, who's on the internet, and he's just a vile, mean person. And I told him that. I said, you are a vile human being, and I'd be happy to debate you on that point anytime. Dave Smith, over and over again, says that Benjamin Netanyahu was quoted as saying that he wanted to prop up Hamas in order to prevent the Palestinian state from coming into being. I looked into it. He said that that's been his policy. I found the woman who was the reporter who in the Jerusalem Post reported that story. And I found an article, and she said in that article, first of all, this isn't a quote, which Dave Smith says 100%, this is what he said, and this is what he stood for. She said, first of all, it wasn't a quote, it was a paraphrase. Secondly, people that keep quoting it are taking it out of context. So I interviewed her. I contacted her. I got her on my show. And I asked her about this. I said, first of all, was this his policy to prop up Hamas? She said, absolutely not. That was not the policy. I said, this quote, was it taken? She said, well, it's not a quote, it's a paraphrase. I said, are you 100% it's accurate? She told me, when you're not in the room, you can never be 100%. She said, but I do trust my source. She said, but the context in which he said it wasn't that that was his position. The context in which he spoke, which was paraphrased, was that on his right, they were attacking him for allowing aid to come into Gaza from Qatar. Now, I don't have to tell you.
Okay, you are going deep into weeds.
I'm going into weeds because it's important to. Because Dave Smith is a big, he's not the official spokesperson, but he's a big spokesperson for libertarianism. He's on Joe. He's in Reason Magazine. He's with Tucker Carlson. And he keeps repeating this over and over again. The reason Netanyahu said that was he was telling people on his right, not that it was his position. He said, if you're opposed to a Palestinian state, then you should support this payments going in to Gaza. And I don't have to tell you, Larry.
I have to touch two pieces here that matter. Two pieces that in my view matter.
Sure.
Piece number one. What you're doing is saying how these people are bad, which a lot of people agree with you. I get it all the time, right? You're not the only person to tell me these people are bad. I hear it all the time. Craig just said how he hates all these people, right? I get it. Lots of people think they're bad. I understand that people believe that. No worries. That doesn't change my point of that's them, not the entire party. That's them, and eventually someone else will replace them because someone replaces everybody, right? At one point, they won't be there, right? And that's messaging now. How about, hold on, how about when Harry Brown was talking? Harry Brown had some of the best messaging ever. I mean, ever. So you're talking in this window, is the Libertarian Party's messaging the best? No, I'm not going to sit and argue with that. Doesn't mean I'm not a libertarian. Doesn't mean I don't support the party. Doesn't mean I don't realize that some people who are terrible are going to stay. Some people are going to go. Jerks are never going to leave. I had jerks in 2016, 2017, 2018, and I'll go to one step further. Arvin Vohra called me and my veterans brothers murderers. And I still said publicly, I would still vote for him over a Democrat Republican if he was running in my state, because he'd still be better than them, even though he insulted me personally. I said this publicly. I would still vote for him. I'd vote for him now. Literally now, if he's running in my state, I'd still vote for him, even though he said those things. It wouldn't change. Second piece I want to bring up, and this is a reason why. When you have so much disrespect or ignoring for all the good things that we say and do, and then we do something shitty, which many of the things you said were absolutely shitty. And what happens? Everything grows. We get attention. We get tons of it. We get attention because when we say a good thing, a good message, almost no one copies it. Not even libertarians. Libertarians don't post it out. Libertarians don't like. They don't share. They don't comment. They do nothing. I know they do to me all the time. I don't grow because out of the people who watch my show, maybe 1 in 10 actually do something to help me. 90% do absolutely nothing. I'm not trying to insult them. Speaking for, they do nothing. And I only ask little things. You saw me ask. They don't do it. I can see they don't do it. And that's the norm. But then let someone put a terrible meme out. Every libertarian decides to share that. Every libertarian has to comment and tell everybody how bad it is. What are we doing when we do that? We are encouraging them to do that.
Sure.
Because they're getting all the attention they want. Now, I'll go one step further. What I found when I was running for office. When the Republicans in 2018 attacked me, when they hammered me and said horrible things, I grew. I grew because people legitimized me. They thought he must be real because Republicans are attacking him. I know how stupid that sounds, but I'm telling you, talk about logic and rational. When the Republicans, I'm not making this up. If you go back, you can look. In 2018, 2019, when Republicans were literally lying, I reposted it. Like I took the lies and seriously, I reposted their lies. That's a fact. I put up their lies on I was part of it because I was growing from it. People were coming to me because of it. Now, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying sometimes people get desperate. A reason why they think all of a sudden RFK is their savior, Vivek is their savior, Dave Smith is their savior, insert person here. And that's why they're doing it. And if we get mad and angry, it doesn't help. That's my counter argument.
No,
It doesn't help.
no, I don't. My argument isn't get mad and angry. My argument is separate from people like that. The libertarians, the classical liberal message, the classical liberal policies are utterly convincing. And if we get those out to people that have never heard the message, we have a chance of bringing them in and growing the movement. If people see the messages coming out of right now, Libertarian National, the Mises Caucus, or these other states, they're going to run for the hills from this party. And that's my point. If somebody sees Dave Smith and he's the representative and they look up, he's saying this is 100% true, and they actually fact check him, they're going to run for the hills. And if the people that are actually in favor of liberty don't check them, then who will?
Who checks the other people?
Who checks whom?
Who checks Democrats, Republicans? They say things fall worse and do fall worse all the time.
Well, first of all,
the time.
First of all, they've got like 40 million people, 50 million people, maybe more each already.
Valid point.
So they're not trying to grow. They're not trying to introduce ideas that haven't been popular in this country for a very long time. So they don't face the same issues. But even then, they've got some people that check within their parties. They're not. But the people that in the Republican Party, for instance, that have stood by and watched Donald Trump and defend him, they're cowards. They're cowards. These talk show hosts who continue to get rich.
That person who does that, and again, I'm not a Trump fan, I'm not voting for Trump. But don't you think the person who supports Trump in the Republican Party believes the opposite? They believe the people who are letting the Republican Party stay the old way, that they are the rhinos and that they are the cowards and that they are the brave ones for supporting the rebel. Don't they think the opposite?
Some people, sure. But when you have Republican or conservative talk show hosts or politicians who for years said one thing, and every time Donald Trump changes a position, which he does frequently, and they go along with whatever he says, no, that's dishonesty. That's cowardice.
Or is it similar to someone who just believes that we need a savior? I'm not saying they're right. I'm saying they believe we need a savior. And, if Donald Trump says X or Y, there's a reason he's playing 4D chess. He's going to save us, right? And I'm trying to give them benefit of the doubt because I know a lot of Trump supporters. I know that people still like Biden, believe it or not. I live in New York City. I know people who still think Biden's great, right? And Biden has gone back on everything he said too. I don't want to beat up on only Trump.
No,
Biden's a disaster too, right? Biden's terrible. But there are people who still go, you don't understand. He's defending us from Trump. I don't think they see themselves as cowards. They think the opposite. They think the people who don't want to support Biden, they're the cowards.
Larry, there's a lot of people
defending democracy. I'm defending democracy, and they're all cowards.
Larry, there's a lot of people like that. I'm talking about the people that recognize it. I'm speaking as an analogy to myself. I recognize when I see people say stuff like Ludwig von Mises would have been an anarchist, had he lived, or he was almost an anarchist. That's BS. That's not true. It's not. I know it's not true. So if somebody knows about Trump or knows about Biden and doesn't say anything, they're cowards. Either that or they're pragmatists.
I agree with you. If you're saying that, I misunderstood you. Okay.
No, I know when I read Josie the Redheaded Libertarian, I know what the real libertarians are. And saying that embryos are children is not it. Praising Alex Jones, not it. Calling immigrants invaders, not it. So if that's what libertarians are going to put forward, as the Libertarian Party of Connecticut, for instance, did, they had her as a speaker, that's not representing my viewpoint. And if I'm not going to say that, then, other people are that but I'm not seeing it, but I'm not enmeshed in libertarian politics. I'm just a guy who got out of prison and wants to promote liberty and sees that people who are using the name that I referred to myself as to promote conspiracy theories and Alex Jones, I have to speak out against it. I have to not call myself that, and I have to say why.
Let me do two things. First, let me do a little bit of admin if I could. Guys, if you're liking this conversation, it's very strong back and forth, which I am absolutely loving, Michael. I'm so glad you came on tonight. Click the like button, right? Click it now if you like it. Do it. Don't beat it 90%. Beat it 10%. Click the like button. Please do that. Also, if you're watching on Twitter, retweet it. It's very good. Just retweet it. I told you how good-looking Michael is. He is. Retweet so people can see how good-looking he is. Do that. It's important. If you want to support the show directly, you can with a super chat if you like, or you can go to Patreon, also good. Or as I said, once this is over, come back later on tonight, tomorrow, whenever, come back on later and leave a comment. It's helpful with the algorithms. If you come back and watch it later, or even watch it, turn it on for a little bit, type something and move on. It's helpful if you can do that. It's really good. But help out Michael also. Head over to his YouTube page, The Rational Egoist. See what he's doing there. Check him out. And if you're mad at him, type in some horrible shit. Do that. He'll respond. Do it. Yes. Type in bad stuff. If you like him, type in some good stuff. I don't care which one. But type in. Give him a little bit of back and forth. It's good for his show. Good for the algorithms. Either way, it works. So I want to give you pushback on both Josie and Alex Jones. Okay. And let me tell you why. Josie's popular. She's very popular. Whether you like her or not, no judgment on whether you like her or not. I think she's right or wrong. She is very popular. Yeah. So two things. One, if she shows up at an event, people want to come see her. She's popular, right? So you're going to have more bodies show up who will meet other people. Like they're going to meet you too, right? So someone's going to come to see Josie. They're also going to meet you. They're going to talk to other people. There is some value to having someone popular, whether you like her or not. Again, regardless of that piece, there's still value in having someone who's popular. Second piece, so is Alex Jones. He's very popular, and his people, they adore him, right? They adore him. If you like Alex Jones, you adore Alex Jones. And when he starts talking about us in some way, if he does, and he comes to us, he brings more bodies to us. Isn't there some value in getting people to be exposed to us, regardless of how they come to us?
No, because of what they're being exposed to.
Okay.
Because if you run an election, let's say you're the candidate, you're the libertarian candidate, and your policies are, we're going to put a small tariff on China. We're going to close the borders, maybe lower taxes a little bit. Wall Street definitely needs to be regulated. And we're going to argue that Alex Jones' free speech is violated unless he's on X, right? Okay, you get elected. You call yourself a libertarian. Who cares? What the hell have I won? What have I won? I've won a title of libertarian, but none of the stuff that I'm interested in are getting. Well,
hold on now. They're two separate things.
They're not.
Activists versus candidates.
No, because the activist, the analogy, Larry, I'm making an analogy, is if they're bringing these people to the party and they're bringing all these people come to the convention, but they're hearing Josie's message. Right? They hear Josie's message. They hear Clint's message. They see Mike Rechtenwald up on the stage talking about how we need to basically close the borders. Right? Yes, they're going to get Jacob Hornberger too. That's true. I don't deny that. But if they're there to see Josie, what difference does it make?
But but hold on. Let me tell you why I think it is. Because either Josie is right, in which case, good, they're getting the right message, or Josie's wrong, in which case they're also going to get Chase Oliver's message, Jacob Hornberger's message, Lars Mapsted's message, Mike Termat's message, your message, you were there. They're going to get all the other messages too. So if Josie's wrong, in theory, in the argument, in the battlefield of ideas, they should be reading your book and saying Josie's wrong, shouldn't they?
Larry, how many people were at that convention?
30, 40, 50?
Right. Okay. How many people does Josie reach on Twitter?
A lot. Thousands.
500,000, I think. Right?
Thousands.
She calls herself Josie the redheaded libertarian. You think people are more likely to come across her at a libertarian convention where they get to see Jacob Hornberger and Chase Oliver? Or are they going to see her on Twitter and see libertarian and see the stuff that she's pushing?
Probably that, yeah.
Yeah, whether it's right or wrong, it really is not the point. My point is it's not what I would consider libertarian or what has traditionally been considered libertarian. And if that's what's passing for being a libertarian, I want no part of it. I don't want part of that word. The policies that Larry Sharpe is pushing, the policies that Jacob Hornberger is pushing. Listen, I've interviewed, like I said, 4 libertarian candidates for president. I thought they were, 3 of them were very nice guys. 3 of them have Mike Termat, Jacob Hornberger, and Chase Oliver have policies that I could get behind.
Well, you don't like Lars?
I didn't interview Lars.
Oh, okay.
I interviewed Rechtenwald, and we debated about a lot of issues, not even politically related, and politically related too. But So that's ultimately my point, is that Josie is calling herself a libertarian. That's what's being associated with libertarianism. Libertarian Party is not disavowing her. Libertarians that I can see aren't disavowing her. She's not representing my viewpoint, not even close. Neither is the Mises Caucus, neither are the loudest voices right now in the libertarian movement. So I take that name away from myself so I don't get confused with them. I still keep preaching the same stuff. Get, the taxation, theft, non-aggression principle.
You got to do what you feel is right.
Of course, we all do.
My view is, and I'm just giving you my view, I wear my libertarianism on my shirt, on my sleeve, literally on my shirt. Like I wear it all the time, right? People talk to me and I always say I'm libertarian. I never hide it. I tell people that I am. With that in mind, I just hope that my message is the right message for the right people and they hear it. Some people don't like my message. My message is not harsh enough for some people, right? And I'm okay with that. There's some people who would rather have a harsher message. Some people love what Jacob Hornberger says. I'm not a Jacob Hornberger. I don't go as harsh as he is. He's hardcore. I'm not, right? But I still bring people in. And people have come in through me and gone down Jacob Hornberger's, rabbit hole. It happens all the time, right? They think I'm till milk toast, but I brought them in. How do I know that? Most people in New York who are libertarians now, most of them to this day came in because of me, because I was so popular in 2018 and 2022. A lot of them, they're past me now, to be very forward. Like they're like, Larry's not good enough. Blah, 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 blah. They're past me already. So all I'm saying is I think that if we get them here, what happens often is in a couple of years, they either go, not for me, and they go back to wherever they came from, or they stay. And my request from anybody, not just you, but anybody, my request to anybody is, if you're unhappy with the leadership and you don't like it, stay libertarian. My request, stay libertarian, have a better message, organize better, and take over the party yourself. And if you need help, I'll be on your board too. That's okay. All, right?
Well, you gave a quote earlier. I forget who it was, and I forget even what it was, but I did like it, whatever it was. But it reminded me of a quote from Einstein. While it's inaccurate technically by the meaning of the word, I think it captures what we're talking about here. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You're saying, well, look, this is what we have to do. But has it grown the party? Has it grown the movement? And it has not. Libertarians are not growing. The liberty movement's not expanding, not from where I stand. That's even with these new folks, the pop culture libertarians, calling themselves libertarians when they aren't. So something has to change. And I'll tell you what, I would rather be consistent with said, and that doesn't mean, by the way, throw out the entire government right now. Because like you said, it's not practical. But you know what? I can take somebody in a movement with me that's Jacob Hornberger because I agree with his ideals. And I, for the most part, and I agree with your ideals. What we're disagreeing about is strategy ultimately. And that's fine with me. But immigrants are invaders. Embryos are children. Close the border. Praise Alex Jones. Those aren't my ideals. Not even close. So what are we're not even fighting in the same direction, really. If someone's going in the same direction as me, they might be a little bit more pragmatic. They might be a little bit more idealistic. Fine, I can work with that. But I cannot work with someone who's going to post pictures of hostages being released by Hamas that says, oh, don't you wish your girlfriend would look like this? Look at you like this. That's not what I'm working with. Never.
Well, the last thing I'll bring up is for most people that I talk to, the vast majority of people I talk to, and I travel New York State every single year. I go to every county. I go on TV at least once a month on News Nation, or back when it was Fox Business News. I speak at conventions. I do all kind of shit all the time. Meet lots of people all the time. Travel, people all the time. Almost no one knows of any of this.
No, that's true.
They don't. They know if they know me, they make a decision on me. They go, Larry, you're too crazy for me. I'm a Democrat, Republican. That's one thing they do. I do get that often. Like they like me. They're like, Larry, you're nice, but you're nuts because I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. I do get that. Like people do think I'm crazy because I'm libertarian. That's true. But they usually aren't mean to me. Sometimes, but it's rare. Usually they're polite. I'm nuts. Never going to vote for you. You people are nuts. But it's not because they saw what New Hampshire did. is because they think libertarians are crazy. And when I tell them about things like, lowering tax, they think, oh, you're just crazy, right? Or ending the war on drugs, you just want people to die. They think that kind of stuff. So that's one piece. And the second piece is, if they like me, they don't care. They think I'm a good, smart guy. They're like, yeah, libertarians are fine. Larry's, or I get this often. Often I get this. Larry, you're one of the good ones. I get that often from them. And again, most of them I'm talking to are not libertarians. The people, I'm the recruiter in this movement, if that makes any sense, right? Mm-hmm. I'm the recruiter. I bring people to be brainwashed effectively. So I've got to bring them to guys like you, Michael, so you can brainwash them for me, right? I got to bring them to you so you can brainwash them for me. That's my job. Yeah. So that's kind of the way I look at where my world is.
You're right, Larry, that most people aren't aware of these controversies. But I'll tell you what, the millions of people that listen to Joe Rogan know who Dave Smith is. They know what Dave Smith's message is. And Dave Smith's message is not what traditional libertarianism, in the sense that I'm going back even before Rothbard. The traditional classical liberal thinkers that have won me over to the cause, that is not what Dave Smith is representing. That's not what the Mises Caucus is representing. And that's what the majority of people are getting.
All right, let me touch some comments if I could. Again, guys, if you like this, great conversation, do me a favor, click that like button. I keep bugging you. Please do it. Retweet it if you could on Twitter. If you want to support the show directly, super chat me or head over to patreon.com. Also a very good idea. Either way, please check out Michael at his podcast on YouTube, The Rational Egoist. It does matter. Let's do that. Let me grab a couple of comments. Got a bunch of them. Russell is, I think, mad at you. Russell says, will someone please get this man some pearls to clutch? I think he's mad at you. He thinks you're doing pearl clutching.
What does that mean? What is pearl clutching? I've never heard this before. Is that like
you ever heard that before?
Like a religious person? I don't get it. What does it mean?
No. Like, okay, like when a woman, it's the idea of a woman having pearls and she sees like somebody scary, she goes, oh, and she clutches her pearls.
Oh, yes. She
sees somebody scary.
Yes, the Mises Caucus is very, very scary. Much scarier than the murderers I spent a quarter of a century around.
Well, just saying,
they're horrifying.
Yeah, Gene says, I became a libertarian after reading Liberty Defined by Ron Paul. I'm still a libertarian because of Larry Sharp and Liz Terwilliger. Oh, thank you. I had her on my show too. She's wonderful. That's great. Thank you for that. See, some people stay because of me. See, that's some do. I know some of you guys are mad at me, but see, some people stay because of me. I have some value. So yes, that's good. Scientific Libertarian says, I wish I can quit you, Larry. Oh, I'm glad. Don't ever quit me. Don't ever quit me. And please click the like button. So yes, do both of those things. Don't quit me and click the like button. Michael says, it's a good conversation. I agree. I completely agree. Joe asks, why do you have to stop calling yourself libertarian when the other ones you're calling out are the ones not being libertarian? That's a valid thing, right? Why aren't you instead saying they're not libertarian and I am, versus you saying you're not?
Sure. If that's the case, then why don't we just call ourselves liberals? Because that's what
people talking about that.
No, but that's the word that traditionally captures us. The reason they changed it was because too many people started calling themselves liberals that didn't capture what they're talking about. And to me, it's a similar dynamic. That's ultimately why. I agree. Listen, I wrote an entire essay on words matter and how we shouldn't be so quick to give up words just because somebody else appropriates them. But at the same time, there's a pragmatic side to me. There's an ethical side to me. I just don't, and I'm not begrudging you, Larry. I'm not saying you son of a gun, stop calling yourself a libertarian. I'm just saying I do not want to be associated with somebody that's going to praise Alex Jones or praise the Unabomber. And especially when it's not like it's just some nut on the street. Like, these are the people running the party at this point in time. Like you said, Josie, she's got like 500,000 followers.
It's a lot. She's very popular.
Yeah. These aren't the fringe of the party. These are the big wigs in the party.
So Michael says, I subscribed. So there we go. You got at least one.
Nice.
You got one. There we go. I know I get you more, but I got one at least. There we go.
Hey, that is worth it.
There we go. Oh, good. All right, Michael, you've been so good to me. By the way, this is his book. It is literally right here. It is A View from a Cage, right? And you can check it out. You can buy it on Amazon if you want to. The link is on YouTube and also on Facebook if you want to check that out. Michael, anything we should say before we wrap this up?
Larry, just that you are a consummate gentleman. When I met you at the convention, you were great, very down to earth, very, very polite guy. I think you're absolutely wonderful. And I really need an opportunity to pick your brain about so much, because I think you could help me in a lot of ways. So thank you. It's been a great discussion. And I do hope people will check out my podcast. I interview a lot of the people that a lot of your listeners and watchers probably really like.
There we go. I appreciate it. Guys, I want to say thank you all for watching this evening. I don't know if I'll be back on tomorrow. I will try, but I got some stuff going on. I'll see if I can. If not, I will be on Monday for sure. I will let you know, and I will see you all